This is Marriage on the Half Shell, Raw and Exposed. Tonight we thought we'd talk about a really more of a controversial topic. We don't usually go down this path, but the title of tonight's episode is Submission is not a four-letter word, not literally or figuratively.
I thought that was funny.
So we're going to talk about submission and what it is in a marriage and what what it should look like, what our practice of it has been.
Right.
Because believe it or not, anybody that's listening who actually knows me might be shocked that I'm actually in favor of this particular concept. Because I don't come off that way to other people. But there's a reason. There's a good reason for that.
People want to know now.
Well, that's all right. We'll get into it. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
So let's start out with
You had a definition.
So this is I just looked it up in the dictionary.
So you don't have to.
What?
For the people listening, so they don't have to look it up.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Okay. Let's see. The act or condition. No, not that one. Whoops. Wait.
Got to get the right context.
Oh no. Okay. An act or instance of submitting or yielding control to a more powerful or authoritative entity. That does sound.
Like master,
Sure.
servant.
Sure. It does kind of
Okay.
sound that way. Yeah, it does sound that way.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into this is a definition. It's not the biblical definition, and it's not the marital definition necessarily.
Yeah.
So, sure, when you look it up, it sounds bad.
I mean, in today's culture,
Sure.
it sounds bad
Yes.
because everybody's so against. As Americans, we're against submitting.
Yes.
Because we're individualists.
Well, that's what we think. We think we're
Well,
against it.
We think we're against it.
We don't like that word, but actually, the only context that we don't like that word in is marriage.
That's true.
Because you have a job, so you have bosses
Yeah.
that you submit to, right? Like anybody that has a job has to submit to they have to do what their bosses tell them to do.
Sure.
I have a part-time job. I also have a boss.
Yeah.
I have a coach. So if I don't do what she says, I'm going to hurt myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I have people that I coach, and if they don't follow my instructions, they're going to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
So, there's this submission thing is going on all the time, all around us. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
Even though we don't call it that.
Right. We don't think we're doing it. But,
Yeah.
We submit to
Authority.
Yes. To police, to our representatives.
Sure.
Right? When they make a law, we're submitting.
Yeah.
When we follow rules
Yeah.
of any kind, we're submitting.
Right.
Even if we're playing a game, we're following the rules. So we're submitting to everybody else who's playing.
Yeah.
In order to make the game fun and, keep it fair and all that.
But when you apply it to marriage, it all of a sudden becomes a four-letter word.
Yes.
And it's a bad thing. So we're going to talk about why that's not the case, and then we're going to talk about how we practice it between ourselves.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, jump into the next section here.
Okay. We are going to go we're going to go into a few Bible verses here.
Yeah. And we've said, you all who listen to us know that we're Christians, but the podcast is meant for everyone's marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't throw a lot of theology out there and things like that, but we're just giving you the context of where marital submission in marriage comes from.
Right.
And who it applies to.
Yes.
And what it means.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just read the little section, and then we'll talk about a little bit about it, and then go into the culture.
Right.
So I'm starting in 5.
Ephesians.
Ephesians 5, 20, really, because that's, so the context of this whole section, or chapter 5, is Paul is telling the Ephesians how to walk out their Christian life.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last thing he says before he gets to that dreaded, wives, submit to your husbands verse, he says, he's talking about giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. So the context there is the church, and husbands and wives are all part of the church. So we submit to one another, right? And that sets the stage for the next part, where he's talking about husbands and wives.
Right.
So, okay, so Ephesians, starting in 5:22, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. I'm going to keep going, but this is the cultural, where the culture has a problem, where they misunderstand
Yes.
or have misrepresented what submission means.
Right.
Anyway, so continuing on, Ephesians 5:25. Now you'll notice that husbands have a lot more verses, a lot more instruction from Paul here, because we need it. All right, so that should kind of give you a clue about where we're going. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor. I always get choked up. Anyway, in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother, and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. Okay. So, when we were discussing this, I think this goes back to Paul's addressing the temptations that wives and husbands will have,
for sure.
In their marriage.
Yeah.
The wife will be tempted to want to control her husband, and we see that
Yes.
in the culture.
Very much so.
And so on. The feminist movement today, and I'm not against women's rights and all that. We're all for it. And we've said that before. But what it's saying today is, husbands aren't needed, or they're just, if you look at advertisements,
Oh my gosh.
all the husbands are buffoons.
Well, it's not just advertising. It's like
movies,
TV, all of it. Last, I don't want to get too in the
Don't go
weeds
too
or
deep into
controversial
it,
with this, but the last TV show where the dad was not portrayed as stupid was the Bill Cosby, the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna, I don't want to talk
go
about.
down that road.
I don't want to talk about Bill Cosby. I'm talking about the show, right?
The show.
That's the last show I remember watching that the man was not portrayed as stupid.
idiot.
Yeah, an idiot, or
weak.
weak or absent,
absent.
or sitting around with his hands one hand down his pants and the other with a beer, or whatever it is, like they don't play a role, right?
Yeah.
Then and that's obviously wrong. Obviously wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
There's
anyway,
a no. That kind of. I'm sorry.
no. I'm just saying that's the cultural view, and that's what we've been shown over and over
Right.
again. And so, if you pay attention, you'll start to see this
Yeah.
more and more, and hopefully realize that that is not the way it should be,
Right.
and that's not the way men are,
No.
and so on. But it comes back to this desire to control,
Mm-hmm.
all the way back to Genesis 4, right after the fall, where
Right.
God says your desire will be for your husband, which is to control him. And then, of course, the husband's temptation is to rule over
Yeah.
you, rule over his wife. And so, since that's part of the curse, we know that being the head does not mean ruling over,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's tyrannical or he makes all the decisions and the wife is a doormat, or
Yeah.
we've said that before. That's not what it means.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've said what it doesn't mean. You had some more stuff about the culture before
culture.
we move on.
Yeah. I follow quite a few marriage and marriage accounts on Twitter. These are other people that also have books or podcasts or whatever, and they're, I'm hoping that we are as a group trying to save
The concept of
say
marriage.
concept of marriage, what it is. So one of the ladies posted that she put in the search bar on Twitter, submit to husband. Immediately, the first thing that popped up was, if you're in trouble, if you're being abused by your spouse, here's the number to contact. And then a number of accounts that had to do with spousal abuse.
Uh-huh.
And I was quite shocked at that, because if you put submit to wife, there's nothing in there. It doesn't give you the same warning.
Right.
And one of the reasons I bring that up is because spousal abuse going the other direction is actually more common than people think. The wife abusing the husband, physically, emotionally, verbally, whatever it is much more common.
Well,
And
look at your
statistics, yeah, I
statistics.
have statistics here, and I will put a link in the show notes so you can look at this yourself. But it is much more common for the woman to be the aggressor. In 2020, there were 248,335 known cases where the female was the aggressor, right? And the same year, for men being the aggressor, it was 225,020, right?
So almost equal, but less.
Yeah, but it was less. And honestly, this is something that we have witnessed ourselves.
Yep.
There's someone that we are very close to who went through this experience himself. It went on for years. Men are terrified of speaking up a lot of times because they're afraid of being perceived as a wimp.
Right.
That's one
But
reason.
At the same time, a husband who's being abused doesn't want to, can't fight back, shouldn't fight back.
No, and that was part of the
Doesn't-
problem.
and
with this
doesn't want to
situation.
fight
Yes,
back.
Yes.
For various reasons, but,
Yeah.
whenever in this case, this
Mm-hmm.
close friend of ours, one of them would call the police.
Yes.
Sometimes the wife would be abusing the husband, even
Yes.
physically,
Yes.
and then herself call the police. And of course, the police come and they would tell him
To
to
leave.
leave for the night.
Yeah.
And they told him, it's like, yeah, if you defend yourself and she gets a scratch, then you're the one. The
Yeah.
husband is the one who goes to jail, even though he's the one who's taking the abuse.
Well, and it was also, judges laughed at him, the police laughed at him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's standing there, bruised, bleeding, whatever it is. It happened multiple times, and the cops wouldn't they wouldn't do anything to her. It was always his fault. So like,
Right.
what did you say? What did you do? How did you provoke this? Whatever.
So it's a standard victim blaming.
It really is. And honestly, it's because our court system is slanted towards the mom/woman in most of these cases. They just, I don't know if they don't see it enough, or I don't know what the deal is, you know, but
I mean, obviously we want to protect women who are abused,
yes, obviously.
of course. And there shouldn't be abuse either direction.
Right.
But all we're saying is that it's about equal, maybe even a little more. We only looked at 2020.
Yeah.
So there was like 23,000 more cases
Yeah.
of where the wife was doing the abusing
Yes.
than where
Yeah.
the husbands were. So anyway,
Well, and you know, if you want a more glaring, we have a glaring example right now going on. We've got the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, you know, going on right now. Obviously, she was the aggressor.
yeah, I mean,
It's
you can-
very
you can
obvious.
tell from the recordings and all that.
And, you know, Johnny Depp's got, you know, he's got his own reputation thing going on, and he's always been a little bit of an outsider, you know.
Yeah,
He's kind of weird. But that doesn't mean he deserved to be beat up by anybody, you know. And
but what happened
anyway.
when? We're not going to stay on this.
yeah, no.
But what happened when the whole thing first came out? Right, everybody immediately
blamed him. Yeah,
blamed him and believed her,
yeah.
even though she was telling
Yep.
lies. And then when the real evidence comes out, it was the opposite. So all we're saying is that the culture has this misconception
Yes.
and a problem. And what does that have to do with submission? Well, I think part of it is, well, like we said, the misconception of what submission really is.
Yeah.
And that's why, and we're going through all this so far up to this point, just to point out, you know, why we said submission in the culture is a 4-letter word.
Right.
But it really isn't. It shouldn't be seen that way.
Right.
So now we're going to talk about
Let's
what it really is.
right. So the way we have walked out, and I struggled with it the first few years we were married. I pushed back on you. I fought back. I didn't want to do it. You know, I really saw it as, you know, obviously I had the example of my parents' marriage, which was not great.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not, you know, that was not helpful.
Definitely.
But once I decided to give it a shot, I was shocked at how much easier my life became. Because I decided that it was a valuable thing to do. And I think one of the biggest reasons women in particular have trouble with it is it requires a huge amount of trust.
Yes.
You've got to be completely open and vulnerable and trust your husband.
Right.
And there are a lot of women who struggle with that. For whatever reason, they struggle with that. And I think that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
Well, we have a whole culture that says don't trust men. Men are evil.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
getting
all
worse
the,
and
you know,
worse,
all this
right.
stuff, right? So, but if you've got a good man and you've married him and you're committed to him and you're going to have babies with him, you got to be able to trust him,
Right.
right? And along with that trust is also respect. And that also has to be a mutual, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, so what we're trying to do, what we're doing here is linking trust and respect to submission.
Yeah.
In order to do submission properly,
Right.
it's trust and respect. And in reality, those things go, like you said, they go both ways, right? So submission goes both ways,
Yeah.
right? And there's part of the way we work it out and is that well, let's see. We heard on another podcast.
We've been doing a little research.
Doing the research, that they said, and we'll link to that podcast too, to give them the credit. But it says these are not roles, meaning headship and submission. Those are not role words,
Right.
but they're attitudes of the heart.
Right.
Words. So it's mutual respect, meaning both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a master-servant relationship,
Definitely not.
right? And it's really how you express, how you communicate with one another.
Mm-hmm.
If there's disagreement, how do you express it?
Right.
Right? Is it with respect? Or is it with like nagging or demeaning or whatever, without respect? When the husband, and part of what they said was, it's from a husband's perspective, it's a leadership initiation type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean he's made the decision and this is what we're going to go do and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
It's, what do you think about this?
Right.
Right. And so then there's feedback and there's discussion. So the way we practice this is that we always talk through our decisions, our major decisions.
Yeah. Well, and even
we come to
a
agreement.
lot of the minor.
Oh, sure.
You know, I mean, there's stuff that we understand about each other now, but that has come from us trusting each other for 33 years.
And talking over these things.
Yeah.
Sometimes more than once.
Yeah.
And so you end up, we end up coming to decisions basically together, right?
Yeah.
And I may play a bit more of a leadership role and initiate, but it's something that I've got to work on too.
Right.
Initiation. But that doesn't mean you can't initiate. You can certainly do that.
Yeah.
So none of this has to do with, master servant or anything like that.
Right.
We never see husbands and wives in that type of relationship at all. They're always side by side, together, equal in value and respect, and so on.
Right.
But, and we've talked about this before, where everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and often you'll be stronger in an area than I am versus, and I'll be weaker, and vice versa. So, like right now, you're the coach, the CrossFit coach, and I submit to what you say. I mean, to do the exercises in the right form and so on, and you push me to work out harder than I might want to because I'm lazy. Right? But I'm submitting to that because you have the knowledge, right, and the expertise, and so on.
Okay, but the flip side of that is I would not have my coaching certificate if I hadn't submitted to you, right? Like, it was something that as my kids got closer to graduating, and now I'm going to be, I've homeschooled for 25 years, and now I'm going to be done. What am I going to do? Because I had, it was like, I don't know if I want to go get a part-time job, work outside the home, or, do I want to just keep teaching, in a co-op setting, or, teach history or whatever it is. And an opportunity opened up for me to take a CrossFit coaching course, and I had brought it up a couple of times.
I think I'd like to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it was like on the list of options, right?
But you didn't feel confident.
I didn't feel confident, but my CrossFit coach, was like, yeah, I really think you should do it, and it was going to be 10 minutes from our house, like the course,
right?
And then when we found that out, you were like, well, you need to do it.
Yeah.
We'll spend the money, go do it. You just go do it. So that was an instance.
Nudged you into it.
Yeah, you did, but you were like, I think it wasn't one of these you have to do something.
Right.
You know, you weren't being domineering and bossy about it. You were like, I think you'll be good at it. You need to do something. You know, now that the kids are done, this is a good opportunity. I think you should do it. Right. And now I've been coaching for almost 3 years. I guess 3 years. I guess
sounds
2.5 years, something like that. And I've got a nice little class, and you know,
and they like you,
and they do.
They might hate you while they're working out.
Yeah, they do. Just like you.
Right. But they really like you, and I really like you.
But see, that's an instance where, you know, I felt weak. I felt a lack of confidence, but you had confidence in me, so you pushed me to pursue that. And now I'm looking at other opportunities, you know, because to teach other things, you know, other physical activities, but and you know, we had also talked about how do we prioritize what gets submitted to and what doesn't. Like, there are little things like you don't talk to me a lot about what I wear. We had this discussion the other night, right? Yeah. Like, for the most part, you're fine with what's in my closet, right? But I also know that there are things you don't want to see me in. Right. There's certain types of clothing that you're like, don't wear that, you know.
Because it doesn't look good on you.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I don't know.
Flatter?
It doesn't flatter you.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So things like really poofy dresses.
Ruffles and lace and all. I don't do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's, so, you know, that could be an area where I could be like, well, I'm going to do what I want. And I'm going to wear whatever I want, right? But I'm not going to do that. I don't care enough about it. I just don't. I'm not a fashion person, you know? But B, you're the one who has to look at me, you know, and you're the one that I date, you know, and you're the one that I go out, we do a lot of stuff together. So I want to look nice for you, you know, and I want to wear stuff that you like to see on me. That's a very minor thing to me. That's not a big, it's not a big deal, you know. Makeup. I don't wear a lot of makeup because you've never made a big deal out of that. Yeah. You know,
I've never said don't wear makeup.
No.
And I've never said you must wear makeup.
No. I will wear it on occasion.
But you want to look.
Yeah. Again, I just want to look nice for you.
Look nice for me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. So it's a thing where you kind of submit to my preferences. Is that what you're kind of talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's different ways to submit.
Yeah.
And some things are minor and some things are more or bigger.
Right. And we could still have respectful conversations about things that we don't agree. There are issues that have come up over the last couple of years where we just clearly are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
We agree partly. I'm thinking of, we're not going to talk about what it is, but we agree partly.
Right.
And then there's a lot of disagreement as well. But we talk to each other respectfully about it if we talk. You know.
And I respect your opinion and your viewpoint, and you respect mine. And I don't push you. I'm not here nagging you and pushing you to agree with me.
Right.
And you're not, you know, putting the screws to me to go have, you know, to do whatever it is you think I should do.
Right.
So it's speaking to each other respectfully.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Right. So showing submission, the act of submission is being respectful toward each other.
Right.
And again, I mean, it's a mutual thing. It's not, I'm the ruler.
Yeah.
And you're the peasant.
Right.
Right. I mean, a lot of times you'll have, this all has to do with knowledge and skills and experience and viewpoints, and it's all where, you know, you fill in my weaknesses and I fill in your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And
that's actually what marriage is supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. And we do, you know, sometimes we both have the same strength, but of course, but there's enough of that so that things get evened out and we balance each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also think something else I just thought of.
Yeah.
It also, yeah, there it is.
Well, the concept of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of leader, a lot of people today have gotten this wrong idea of in charge, and in a sense, a leader is in charge. And I'm thinking of, for instance, the military or something like that. But you have to think of it in terms of servant leader,
Right.
right? So that's from the biblical perspective. A husband is a servant leader. That's why it said he lays down his life
Mm-hmm.
for her.
Yeah.
Right? Because Christ laid down his life
Yeah.
for the church. So it's not I get to rule and have all the stuff and all of that.
I mean, even if even if you're not a believer, but you read the story of Jesus, he didn't walk through every town and lord it over everyone,
Right.
so to speak. He didn't.
No, he didn't. He was very humble.
Yeah.
And he led as a servant.
Yes.
He showed that in various.
Yeah, he fed people, he healed people,
Right.
he
He
sat
benefited
around with
people. He
yeah.
taught people.
Right.
And then finally he died for
Yeah.
people.
Right.
Right. And then, so I was getting back to the military. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, if you look at, say, a good captain or a lieutenant in the Army is going to understand that in a lot of sense, his enlisted men, especially the sergeant of his platoon or whatever it is, will have more experience.
Right.
Because, the captain or lieutenant is pretty young, and will have a better knowledge, and he's closer to the men that are being led. So
Mm-hmm.
the captain says, okay, this is the direction we're going. This is what we have to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I think it should be done, and the sergeant would come in and this is what works, and, here's my experience and all that. And then the captain's job is often to make it possible for the men under his command to do their job.
Right.
It's not to sit back and be in charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got the power to clear obstacles and make it easier for his men to do the job.
Right.
Men or women,
Yeah.
today, to use their skills and all that. So that's just from a military perspective.
Right.
The same kind of thing is applicable in all of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in work, if I'm doing a job because I have a certain skill, it's the same thing. My manager doesn't just sit back and he'll say, here's the goal we have to reach or whatever. But if there's obstacles, I can go to him or her and just say, I need this cleared out, or this is in the way, or I need this fixed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's outside I need some help from someone else,
Right.
and so he'll negotiate with someone else's manager to get time and all that. So he clears out the obstacles, and I can do my job more easily.
Right.
Right. So applying it to marriage,
Mm-hmm.
We help each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And so on.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm kinda running at the mouth, but
Yeah, no, I mean, most nights I cook dinner, and okay, that's not necessarily the woman's job, but you're still working,
yeah,
you
do
know,
it while I'm working.
and I'm here so I can cook dinner, but a couple of nights a week you will pitch in and help me,
Yeah.
or like Saturday mornings now, most of the time you cook me breakfast.
Yeah.
But that's because I make breakfast all the other days. You know what I mean? It's give and take.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're serving each other, and
Yes.
okay. So submission has to do with servanthood as well,
Yeah, it does.
but primarily, the trust and respect. There's a lot that enables submission to be a good thing in marriage. And so that's what we're trying to describe.
Right.
So it doesn't look like the culture, it looks like what the biblical definition is.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of other biblical examples where the women are, they have a certain set of skills and they're respected by their husbands for it.
Yeah.
And, they're not just doormats or property or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're part of the couple, part of the one entity where it says, they'll become one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've got to say.
I mean, we could give more examples of how it works between us because, like I said, I think a lot of people listening, or the people who know me anyway, listening to this might be actually shocked.
Well, describe what you mean.
Because I tend to be the talker. You're pretty quiet. People see me as, I don't want to use the word aggressive. I say what I think. I don't hesitate to say what I think. I'm a take charge kind of a person. Having 6 kids will do that to you. So submission hasn't always been easy for me.
Right.
There were a lot of times that you would have to intervene with the kids when I had made a mess of things. And that was really hard. Hard to take. Yeah.
Yeah. But we were just balancing each other out. I was keeping you from going too far down.
I mean, the way I describe to other people is, I hate to bring up Bill Cosby again, but there was a line from his comedy routine where he said, oh, wait a minute. Oh, right. He was talking about his kids fighting and all this, and he said, I don't want anyone in this house to ever touch another human being as long as you live. So it's like this wild declaration, and the kids are going, yeah, all right. That was me. I would do that kind of thing. I would just get so fed up with their nonsense that I would say something ridiculous like that. And then you would have to come in behind me and go, no, that's not what it's. She didn't mean it. She didn't mean it. She's just upset, and then I would feel undermined, and it was just kind of we had to figure all that out. But that was how we would, you would sit down and have a discussion with them. We're going to talk about this and sort it out and everything. And I'm just like, I've had it, I need a glass of wine. I'm going to go sit in my room. I can't do anymore. I just had my limit. That's what I felt like. So that was that was good that we could balance each other that way. And it didn't always work. We did get into some nasty fights. Sure. We had some nasty fights because children will do that to you.
It's still our fault. They just bring the opportunity.
They do. They
to practice respecting each other.
Yeah. And I hope that that's what they saw more of.
Yeah. I think
they knew who the boss was, and it was not me. I don't mean that in a you were dominating the house or anything like that, but when it came to a big decision, they knew that the final decision was Dad's. It was not Mom's, but Mom would have an input.
Not just input. I mean, like heavy influence.
Yeah.
Right.
We would discuss it. They knew that it was coming from both of us, but if Dad brought the no, then the answer's no. That was just how it was, and they would try to negotiate with us and talk to us and whatever, but,
I think hopefully what they saw, what kids, if you're listening, hopefully what you saw was not just us fighting.
Yeah.
Right. It was us having intense discussions sometimes intense, sometimes not, but discussions and working through things together. and throughout that, showing respect for one another, and then ultimately submitting to one another.
Right.
Right. How did I treat you? How did you treat me?
Right.
And we always worked it out, and we're still here 33 years later.
We fight a lot less now. We don't fight as much.
We don't hardly fight at all, I don't think.
I mean, we occasionally do things that get on
some
each other's nerves,
disagreement.
but
Yeah, sure.
but see, this is also the result of years of trust, vulnerability, respect,
Yeah.
all of that. You know.
And so marriage is your greatest adventure
Yeah.
and your greatest opportunity for growth as you live with this other person and you have to relate to one another, get to know one another, submit to one another,
Right.
and respect one another, and all those things, right? So, anyway, is that all we've got?
I
Do you
think
have
we.
any more examples, or
I mean,
not to belabor?
again, you know, we can talk again about the how you prioritize it. Like I said, what I wear is a minor thing,
Okay.
right?
Well, what's a major thing?
Well, a major thing would have been the CrossFit coaching certificate.
Yeah.
It took you a long time to kind of talk me into that because I didn't feel like I was confident enough to do it, but you knew I could.
I knew you could do it. Sure.
But that's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
It really is. Things like
No, moving down here.
yes, yeah,
We're in South Carolina. We moved
Right.
from Maryland, and we had talked about moving south, but mainly like Virginia,
or North Carolina somewhere.
or
Yeah,
maybe North Carolina, and I just kept nudging,
Yeah.
and nudging and convincing and persuading, and so that was a big major thing. And I think we're glad we moved here
Yeah.
rather than somewhere else at this point.
yes, yeah, we definitely are.
Okay. So there's some big things.
Yeah.
I feel like I listen to this guy who does movie reviews, and he says, "And that's all I've got for today. Go away now." And I'm thinking, it's time to say that.
Well, I hope that we've covered it in such a way that maybe there's a better understanding
Yeah.
of what it is, what it means, what it should look like.
Right.
In
marriage.
in a marriage, yeah.
And I mean, believe biblically.
Right.
Right. So if we're not trying to persuade people to become Christian or anything, but if you look at how it's described in the Bible, the Bible has plenty of examples of how it shouldn't be done.
Sure.
Right? So
yeah.
It's not declaring this is what it is.
Right.
Right. It's showing you the consequences of bad leadership and bad submission and so on. But it also talks about what's good, and I think that's what we've just tried to do is describe what it really means. So put aside what the culture says, and
Quit watching TV. No, I'm not. Watch whatever you want, but watch it with maybe more of a critical eye.
Yeah, watch it, read everything with a critical eye. Yeah, I mean we talked earlier about shows and there's news articles, there's
Right.
Whatever. You should have this idea now of, I'm seeing what they're talking about.
Right.
This is this is like a propaganda
It
thing
is.
that convinces me this is the way the world is.
Yeah.
When or should be, when in reality that's not the way it is, and that's not the way it should be.
No.
So there's your
Summary.
summary. Is that a summary?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, that's all we've got in the notes.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that's all we've got to say.
Yeah, I hope that this is helpful for everyone.
Yeah.
If you ever encounter me, you will understand why my friends might be a little shocked that I would even submit to doing this particular podcast. But it's saved our marriage.
Yeah.
This concept
Kept us
has
going
kept
strong.
us going strong. It's saved our marriage. And you know, I could think of several other couples that I know who are also practicing the same thing, and it's working for them too. You know, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And we've also seen where it wasn't there, and
Yes.
you know how it affected the marriage and destroyed it.
Yes, definitely.
You know?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up.
All right. So this has been Marriage on the Half Shell, Raw and Exposed. Have a good evening.